All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Jenny Tomes. I'm the Assistant Manager of Utility Outreach. Welcome to our third installation this year of our quarterly Utility Systems Lunch and Learn event. So as you know, we host this event once a quarter, and we focus on different topics. So I mentioned when we were getting started here that communications shoots a video of this. So if you've missed any in the past, any topics that you're interested in, you can go to the city's YouTube channel and then watch some of our previous events. But this one here today focuses on what's underground. So I was intentional because I was very vague, right? So I kept it very mysterious, but clearly that mystery paid off because look how many people are in this room today. I think we have about 80 here today, so I'm going to file that away for future. Keep it mysterious, right? So keep the intrigue. Don't give it away, right? So you want them to come, and then we do the big reveal. So that's what we're going to do today. So we're talking about what's underground. So not only the assets that are underground, but the folks who protect what's underground, who keep track of what's underground, who maintain, who help fix the things that are underground, who make sure other people don't come in and break what's underground. So all of these folks behind me here today collectively have, and I did the math, about 75 years of experience in the industry, all added up together. So you have the industry experts with us here today. So I'm going to quick introduce them. All right, so there's me, I'm Jenny. So down here on the end, we have Cheryl Matson. She's the Data Communications Supervisor with the UIS, that's Utility Information Systems Mapping Division. We have Jay Wickham, newly promoted Superintendent of Inspectors and the Locators Division. We have Scott Mahar, Manager of Electrical Systems and SCADA. Eric Perez, Lift Stations Supervisor of the Lift Stations Division. And then lastly, Joe Hood, Lift Stations and I&I Supervisor of the Lift Stations Division. So we're going to go kind of one by one. They're going to talk about their functions, their jobs, their responsibilities. There's not going to be a lot of visuals today because, quite frankly, we can't show them to you. A lot of what we do is not available for the public. We are Homeland Security level, especially with our drinking water, right, and our distribution system. So a lot of those things are internal. Cheryl's going to talk about mapping. We can't show you the map. We can't show you where the stuff is, so hence more mystery. So you're going to have to visualize on your own today. But we will do our very best to explain the functions of what each one of these divisions does. So before we get started with our panelists, I'd like to introduce our event sponsor, Environmental One. So we have Jim Welsh with us today. He's going to talk just a little bit about our new sewer system. I'm going to turn it over to Jim. Thank you.
Well, that's going to be a tough introduction to follow. Jim Welsh, Environment One. Thank you guys for taking time out of your day to be a part of this event. You got a great group of panelists that are going to be talking to you about what's underground. And to kind of continue the theme of the day, you'll notice the demo unit next to me. This is also underground, a little bit sticking up. Some of you guys may already have this in your properties now, and if not, over the course of the next couple of years, you'll be seeing these all over the city of Port St. Lucie and honestly in the surrounding territories. E1 operates in 46 countries internationally, and the best part for you guys, it should be flush and forget. So in the event there's any issues, maintenance concerns, you've got a great team over here to the right of me to answer all your questions and provide service. I did want to take a minute to thank Port St. Lucie for allowing us to sponsor this event. And again, theme of the day, underground work. This is a wastewater tank. So does anybody in here like poop jokes? I don't. They all stink. I got one, though, before I hand it off to the boys. What is brown and sticky? A stick. Come on. All right, guys. Thank you very much for letting us introduce ourselves and talk a little bit about what we do, what we provide. And if there's any additional questions, me and my coworker, Joe Papadakis, will be in the back of the room to be able to answer any questions you guys may have for us. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. Thank you. I love it. All right, so I'm going to hand it over to Cheryl Matson to tell us more about the mapping that she does.
Thank you. Great. Thank you for having us here today. I'm so excited to be here with such a great crowd. So I am with the UIS division, and as a supervisor, I work the data side of things. So on the data side, we basically support the network administration, the database management for all the assets in the utility department. Then we have the mapping side. The mapping, they make maps, presentation maps, as well as street maps that I have some right here if anyone's interested after the presentation. So to get that data, work orders come in to the utility department. Then we get those work orders, and we basically, our guys, we have technicians that go out into the field. They take this GPS unit, and what it does, it's a little tablet that has an antenna attached to it. This connects to 2 antennas we have throughout the city that covers the entire area, and it collects the data points. And then these data points, they bring them back to the city, and they take a couple of different applications to transform that data. Has anyone ever heard of AutoCAD? Yes, so it's been around for a long time. So we use that program to basically draw the assets into the map. And then we take another program called FME, which is a feature manipulation. Sorry, excuse me. I don't want to drop this. It's very expensive. And Scott's going to help me. Thank you, Scott. So anyways, it manipulates the data, translates it into a GIS data, which we put into our geo database. And with that, we're allowed to create the map documents that we create. So these map documents, we also create a map application. And the map application, we distribute to employees. They can use it on their laptops, their desktops, whatever they have, they can locate assets within the city. And by doing that, it allows them, while they're out in the field, they can see where they're at, they can find their location, and work on that asset, and it kind of lets them see the other assets that are around there. I'm trying to think what else. Sorry. This is my first time doing that. My boss decided to take vacation. My goodness, what am I going to do with him? Anyway, so the map has been in a process. We've been doing this for like 20 years in the creation of this. We started with paper documents. We input all that information into these programs to create this wonderful application. Pretty soon, we're hoping that we're going to combine the map application with our work orders. We're working on a program right now that hopefully they'll be able to click on an asset in the map and be able to do a work order right off of that. We're in the process of pretty soon hopefully testing that, and hopefully by the end of the year that will be available to the utility department. So if anyone would like to guess, how many meters do you think we have throughout the city? Water meters that we would have throughout the city. Anybody want to take a guess? Pretty close. We have over 90,000 meters that are installed. And on an average, we install 150 to 200 a month. That's how busy and how the growth of the city has gone. We also, how about residential grinders? Want to take a guess at that? Not quite as many, because not everybody is using a grinder system. We still have a lot of people on septic, but they're trying to get those people to convert. So hopefully that happens they're continually working on that to help clean up the water system that we have. But we have about a little over 45,000 residential grinders in the area, and that grows on a monthly basis as well. And that averages between 75 to 100 a month installations. So we have a lot of things going on monthly, continually. The city is growing, and as it grows, we continue to update our maps and update the infrastructure. So having said all that, that's basically what our group does, and we couldn't do it without the support of all the other individuals with the utility department, because we get our data through what they do in the field. So I'm going to turn it back over to Jenny at this point. Oh, okay. All right, so I'm going to hand it off to Jay. Thank you very much for your time.
Good afternoon. So my name is Jay Wickham, and I am in charge of the inspectors and locators for the city of Port St. Lucie. I have, 8 commercial development inspectors that all they do is make sure all the utilities that are being put in the ground for any type of new construction out in the city is done properly and in accordance with our specs and standards, so it can last a long time and the guys at the other end of the table don't have to go out and fix it for as long as they can. And then I also have 10 full-time locators, which we will talk about, and they are responsible for locating all the underground water, sewer, a little bit of electric, some fiber, and reclaim lines, well lines, all that stuff. So they heavily rely on everything that Cheryl does on a daily basis by entering the stuff into our GIS, which we can't show you. So first off, I just want to talk about me because I always like to talk about me. There's me on the left. I had just created a locate or completed a locate when we were super busy and far behind. And on the right side is me and my family doing my favorite thing, eating. So that's my wife on the right. We just celebrated 18 years of marriage 2 weeks ago. And thank you. My daughter, who's 14, getting ready to go into high school, so I'm pretty scared about that. And my son, who's 12, so it's a fun group. So this is my crew. On the left, we are in what was formerly our training room at the RO plant, and we were listening to a presentation from Sunshine 811 liaison John from Miami. So most of those people are mine. The guy that's sitting in the back row with the hands behind his head is not one of my locators. He works for Public Works, so he doesn't have as many locates as we do, so please don't get on me about that. The picture on the right is one of my locators, Brian. You'll often see us out in force wearing, safety vests and on the side of the road with paint cans and flags marking all the stuff. So if you see them, honk at them. They really like that. In 2021, we did 52,311 locates. That's how many we processed through the system with 8 full-time locators. And we located 5,216,184 feet of utilities, or 988 miles during that year. So that was a big task. In 2022, fortunately, City Council let us go up to 10 full-time locators to help with that process. And we processed 54,566 locates. The amount of feet was a little less, but we found a recording error in how we were documenting our footage. Some people were doing it one way, some were doing it another, and it kind of got loose. So next year I think we'll be up again with that. So we do a lot of locates. And the locates are governed under Florida Administrative Code Chapter 556. So the contractors and homeowners, if you guys are digging, you're supposed to call 811 before breaking ground. There are a few exceptions for homeowners, which I won't get into, but if you're only going like a foot in the ground, they don't require it. If you're working really close to the house, they usually don't require it. Us as the utility owners, we have 2 business days to mark and respond to all those locates. So like I said before, we mark the water, the sewer, the reclaim, raw water mains, a little bit of fiber optic cable, and some services. But one of the key points is we actually stop at our point of service. If you've been watching me, I've been texting. There was a homeowner that just asked me questions because when we go out to do a locate, we stop for the water line. We'll stop at the water meter, and that's it. And you guys own what's between the water meter and the house. And we don't have an effective way of saying whatever plumber installed it where it goes. So we have no idea, and we don't try to venture a guess on that stuff because we don't want to be held liable. So on that slide, you can kind of see on the left side, it's the private stuff. So if you have gas, power, sewer, all that stuff. Our sewer system, if you're on gravity sewer, the point of service for the city is closer to the street. If it's on a grinder station like that, the point of service is actually the grinder station. So we'll locate that all the way up into your yard and by your house to make sure if somebody's putting in a fence or palm trees or whatever for you, that they're not disturbing the city lines and aggravating Joe and Eric. So here's some completed locate pictures. On the left, you can see a little bit of a blue mark on the road, and it goes into the grass with a flag that indicates there's a water service or a water line there. It's the same thing with the picture on the right. We follow the APWA color codes where water is going to be marked with blue, sewer is going to be marked with green, power is going to be marked with red, and so forth. We got another one on the left. You can see the green marks in the road, that's where our sewer line is. And then on the right side picture, you can kind of see a valve that's kind of busted up into high grass. And then if you look back in the bushes, you'll see a fire hydrant. So we own all the way up to the fire hydrant. So you can see blue paint and flags going up to there. It's just another example. On the left, on the right side, somebody had mulched in a nice little thing right outside their fence, but as you can see, the blue mark continues into it, and their water meter was actually buried under all that mulch. So that's no fun. That's why you see the shovel out there. Our locator had to get out there and probe it and find it with a metal detector and dig it up so we could have access to it. So please don't bury those. This is what we're trying to avoid. So this was, last year. We had a contractor working on Port St. Lucie Boulevard, and we had an active locate, and it was good, but the contractor failed to see a valve, and when they were digging up the road there to do the widening, they busted the road. So on the right side, we have what's considered to be a 2-foot tolerance from the edge of pipe. So when we're marking these lines, we have to be within 2 foot of the edge of the pipe, otherwise the city is responsible for the fix. If it's within 2 feet, then we can usually hold the contractor negligent. So you can see our assistant director there pointing at the fact that it was less than 2 feet, who happened to grace us in the back of the room, but he was pretty happy that day that it wasn't a problem of one of my people, and saved us a few $1,000s that we were able to bill back to the contractor to fix. But it did cause a lot of headaches, because I believe that part of the road on Port St. Lucie Boulevard was shut down for almost a day, and that's no fun. So, picture on the left was AT&T was doing a directional bore to bring fiber to all the people in the city, and they hit one of our old asbestos concrete water mains, and it shot a geyser up in the road above the telephone pole. So those ones are always fun. And the picture on the right, you can kind of see the directional drill machine and the edge of pavement right there. I don't know if you can make it out, but you can kind of see the pipe in the ground. But we did not locate that one properly, so we had to eat that one, and get to sit in offices and have fun meetings when we're off like that. So. Yeah, sure. So that's it for the locators. On the commercial development side, like I said, I have 8 full-time inspectors. In 2022, we had 96 open commercial projects, and we completed 4,737 inspections. Now, the 96 commercial projects, that's going to include, I'm not sure where everybody lives, but if you guys are familiar with tradition, like Riverland's growing, so Riverland, one of their whole pods would be one commercial project. And then also, like when you see an Aldi's or something pop up, that's considered one commercial project. So 96 is a challenge to be everywhere and see everything that goes on at the same time. So these are the required inspections that we do. On the right-hand side, this was a graph that one of our project managers came up with. But basically, we do a pre-construction meeting with the developer, the contractor, and everybody. We do a material inspection to make sure that everything is perfect and good before they put it in the ground. If there's a lift station, we watch the lift station be installed, first manhole set, and we just go from there. We do a bunch of flushing and chlorinations and all that stuff before we turn water over, and try to keep everything separated from the drinking water that you guys are drinking out of. We keep everything separated. That way when they're doing all this testing, it doesn't contaminate the water that you guys are drinking or using. So it's a lot of fun. So here's some pictures from the field. Both of these pictures are of a lift station being constructed out in the field. When you guys drive by these fences, you guys don't ever get to see the mass amount of preparation time that it takes to put these in the ground and to make sure they're perfect. So they come in sections, and they just put it together like a Lego set to get where they need to go, but they can be up to 30 feet deep around here. We try not to make them more than 25, but we have some that are a little deeper than 30 feet. On the left, we have some contractors installing water main underground. And in the picture on the right, that's what we call, those are pigs. And they put those in the pipe before we finish construction on one end, and we flush it through with water, and it pushes any kind of dirt or anything that's in the pipe out with it. And then we continue with our chlorination. So it's just to try to keep the stuff new. And I have a couple samples of that. So Jenny's got one pig there, and the other one is the other style, the bullet-shaped one, but it's just foam. It's just foam. That one's a little harder foam, but that's what we use to get all the dirt out of the lines before we start getting the stuff to put in service.
These are clean, right? You clean these before I just touched them? These are clean? No?
We don't pig the sewer pipes, so they're always clean. So some of the things that we look for, like on the left, we do we televise all the sewer lines before we accept them and take ownership. So on the left, you can kind of see that it's bubbled. And this was a process that started during COVID. We had a major shortage in pipe, and we found out that because there was a major shortage, when they turned the processing plants on, they were so far behind that they just sped everything up and shot it through, and everything wasn't properly done. So the guys have been doing a good job making sure that we are not getting an inferior product. Unfortunately, this one was already installed, so the contractor had to go back, dig up the road, pull it out, and put new pipe in. But that's on them. We're going to make sure that we get the best product for the city so we don't have to keep paying for it down the road. On the right is how we tap our water mains for service. So when we have a new community, we'll have, these big mains running down the road. And in order for them to get water in, instead of constructing new lines, we just put a valve and a saddle on the main that's existing. And they use this machine to drill into the PVC pipe, and it provides water for the new one. I also have a demonstration of that, or a piece of that. So this is the coupon that comes out from the PVC. You guys can see how thick the PVC is, but that's the outside of the pipe. And that's what comes out of that. And then I always have fun pictures. This is more or less for my onboarding and orientation. I tell all the new employees stuff's going to happen. One of my guys backed into a tree, but always be sure to tell us when that stuff happens and don't try to hide it. That's what I tell the new people. So on the left, that's one of my inspectors, Randy. We were testing out a new program for the phone with the camera where it gives you, the date and time stamp. So I said pose for the camera, and that's what I got out of Randy. Mike on the right side, he's watching a lift station actually be pulled apart because the contractor didn't put it in right. And before we accepted it, we found a leak in there, and they had to go back, dig it up, and pull it apart. So that was fun. We had to do Zoom meetings and Teams meetings a lot during COVID. So on the picture on the left is another one of my inspectors. I always told him, I said, man, you got to make sure your camera's off if you're going to look silly in a photo like that. Took it and put it up there for him. On the right, it's also Billy. That was another contractor on one of the jobs that was going to town and hit one of our water mains. So we're always having to go out into the field and dodge equipment. Well, one of our trucks didn't survive one day. It got backed into by that huge loader that's behind it. And then even so, you can see the picture on the right. That's also another water main break that happens on these new construction sites as they have water going through there and they're constructing it, people will come by and rip it out of the ground. So that's all I got. If there's any questions, let me know. If not, I'm going to turn it over to Scott. Yep.
Very thorough. All right, we're going to hand it over to Scott now. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm more of a behind-the-scenes type of person. I don't get to speak in public very often, so I appreciate coming out in front of some of the smartest people in PSL today. And I know you're smart because you're in the AC and you're getting a free lunch. So I appreciate you coming. So once again, my name is Scott Mahar, and I'm the manager of Electrical Systems and SCADA. And as far as I know, the theme is underground, and some of my work, some of our data travels underground is why I'm here. I'll speak to the electrical part first. So I work with FPL, and I manage a lot of our rates for our plants. And the electrical service generally comes in overhead. And then on our plants, they're some of them are very diverse and large. They have many facilities on the plants, and that's all underground. And we have a lot of large pumps and large motors. They use a lot of electricity. So we try our best to, like I said, manage costs so that those savings can be passed on to you, the customers. So in regards to the SCADA, does anybody know what SCADA systems are? Okay. Supervisory control and data acquisition, correct. So what that allows us to do is manage our remote facilities from common points. It ties us all together, and we can control pumps at wells. We can view lift stations, what's going on at lift stations, and manage a lot of our facilities and our stations. So I brought a cheat sheet. I don't have any props or anything either. So like I said, they're underground below us all is a web of fiber optics. So I assume most people know what fiber optics are. All right, so that is transverses throughout the city, and there's 4 major stakeholders within the city that operate on the fiber that share responsibilities, and it's utilities, public works, parks and rec, and IT. Now, IT manages computer systems and stuff like that for our internet and our access to our servers. Parks and Rec will have cameras on the fiber. And IT, I mentioned IT already. Parks and Rec and Public Works does the traffic signaling and controls that via the fiber. For us, like I said, we have all of our data. Well, most of our data. Some is radio controlled. We're trying to convert all of that to fiber eventually because it's more reliable and more robust. And like I said, all of our data for our SCADA network travels through the fiber optic that's underground. That's pretty much all I have. Sorry, I'm a bit nervous. Like I said, I don't really talk in public very often, so I appreciate the comfort.
They're good sports, and I appreciate everybody coming up here because, like, this is my job, right? Like, I do this stuff all the time, so they do not. Like they said, they're very much behind the scenes. I mean, they're dealing with customers and things in other divisions and other departments and contractors in this, but this is, you guys are intimidating. There's a bunch of you. Like, there's way more of you guys today than there are of us. So I just, appreciate you guys all being up here and doing this for me. So I'm going to pass it on down to these guys. Now, these guys are pros. You guys have been here a couple times with us. So I'm going to pass it over to Joe and Eric to talk more. And they have some visuals too. So I'm going to go ahead and get those queued up.
How you guys doing? All right.
I got to put your pictures just in order. So we've got truck and then
So we got-
truck and then some of the photos inside.
We didn't bring a lot of props. I guess we weren't really prepared. So, no, I'm teasing. No, we got some pictures. So what Eric and I do is, you guys are probably all familiar. You've probably seen some of the lift stations, the fenced-in areas that usually smell really pleasant when you drive by. So, we maintain those, and a lot of the gravity, actually all of the gravity sewer lines that are under, and force mains that are under the ground, stuff you can't see. This truck here is one of our underground televising units, closed caption TV. It has a, if you go to the next one, Jenny, I think, if there's a, okay, so that's what the back of it looks like. It looks like a mess right now because it's parked and hasn't been used in probably a week. So there's a little control room, like what we call the office. The guys have full control of the camera, which I think is on the next one. Yes, so this little device here, we call it a tractor or camera. It's got a camera on the front of it. Some people call them crawlers. There's all different names for them. We lower that down through a manhole. So we use the manholes that you see in the road, the large castings, steel castings. We'll open those up, lower this down. That's our access point to be able to maintain the sewers. We'll lower this down in, and has a cable attached to it. The guy sits in the office. He can see what's going on the computer screen through the camera. Drives along looking for any deficiencies, whether it be a broken pipe, separated pipe joint, or a lot of times we get damaged by other utilities. Phone, power, water sometimes. Directional boring, they can bore through our pipes without them knowing it. That's kind of where we all tie together. Jay's guys go out and locate the pipes. Sometimes they're, our guys are rarely off. No. Accidents happen. So, you know, when you're directional boring, a lot of times these people don't know how deep the pipes are, so they'll bore through one of our sewer mains. Being a gravity pipe, you don't know about it until it's too late, unless you get there beforehand, preventatively, and can televise it and see that. Then we have repairs we have to make after that. Then it's a who did it game. So, and then this is a picture of what the camera operator might see sitting at the computer. So you can kind of see the inside of the pipe. I think Jay had one of these pictures in his slide. We could kind of see the inside of the pipe. Of course, his was new. His wasn't a used pipe like this one is. So sometimes we find some crazy stuff in there, but for the most part, it's just sitting there looking at dirty pictures all day, I guess, right? So it's, or dirty films, whatever you ever wanted to. So, so we can go through, and it's really not, sometimes it's exciting, but for the most part, it's kind of a boring job. But that's kind of what we do. So what we're looking for on the I&I, I guess, I didn't touch on the I&I. Does anybody know what I&I stands for? That's right, inflow and infiltration. So our sewer mains, our sewer infrastructure is not designed to take on stormwater. So a lot of people, especially way back in the old days, sewer systems were combined. You had sanitary sewer, you had storm sewers, everything rolled together and just kind of went down the way. EPA came along and said, no, we can't do this. Can't dump sewer, sanitary sewer into waterways. So now we have two separate systems. Sanitary sewer systems are only designed to take on what we put down the drain, right? Or sanitary waste. They're not designed to take on stormwater. So stormwater enters what we call I&I, inflow and infiltration, whether it be a break in the pipe, a leaky manhole. There's 1,000 different ways it can get in there, but we want to keep it out. This is another way we monitor it. We go through and we look for water leaking into our pipes and try to mitigate that. Did I miss anything? I don't think so. I think that's good. I'm going to turn it over to Eric. He's going to talk. Yes, ma'am.
The cameras, once you put them down, obviously you have to get into the sewers. How far will they extend before you have to go to the next manhole? You're checking.
So a lot of that depends on the equipment they're using. Our equipment that we have, I want to say we can go probably 800 to 900 feet. So, you know, a lot of that depends on how deep the manhole is, obviously, because that's taking up cable as well. So we can usually go 800 to 900 feet, depending. And a lot of that also depends on traction, right? Because inside of these pipes sometimes are slippery. So if you get out really far, you're also dragging. The cable is really light, but you get a lot of it, and you got tension pulling on it. So if the tires start to spin and you can't move, you have to pick up and then try to go downstream. So, yes, ma'am. So does it ever get stuck? Oh, yes. No. As far as getting it out, no. That's very rare. A lot of that has to do with so we can see where we're going. If we see something that's a little crazy, like we might get stuck if we go through there, we don't go through there. We'll go from the other side. So there's so there's always, most of the time there's two entry points, right? There's an upstream and a downstream. The sanitary sewers are sloped. We usually try to televise downstream to go with the flow pretty much. As if we're going against the flow, we have that we're damming the water's trying to splash up and it makes it hard to see. So if for some reason we're going downstream and we get to a point where, this looks a little iffy, let's not get stuck, we'll go to the downstream side and drive back up to it to see what's going on. And then that's usually when we'll get a sewer cleaner truck involved and we'll go out and jet the main, try to clear it. So, yes, ma'am. No, our pipes are clean. We never have anything like that. There's no roaches or rats or anything in Port St. Lucie. No. Yes, usually we do. A lot of roaches. Every once in a while we'll find a rat, but nothing. I don't think we've seen any alligators or snakes or no. Chupacabra one time, I think. No. Yes. Every once in a while. You're referring to like if the pipes collapse? Every once in a while. I mean, we'll get involved every once in a while if the first responders, whether it be fire department or law enforcement, need us. We'll get involved sometimes with our back truck. We've been involved with something like that. I think what he's referring to, I know this guy and he's trying to put me on the spot. So, you guys were probably all familiar. I don't know if you saw it or not. How long ago was that? Been a couple years ago. 2021, out off of Becker Road, there was a project, subdivision being built, and the contractor that was developing the land out there, putting all the sewer, building the lift station, kind of like one of the pictures Jay showed earlier. A guy got stuck in the hole, and the utilities was asked to come out and help with some of our vacuum trucks to try to help rescue the guy, which they got him out alive, so. It was a good day. I saw a question over here.
What's the purpose? You mentioned lift stations. What's the purpose of that?
The lift stations?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're in Florida. We have a lot of groundwater. Our pipes can only be so deep. So we're all familiar with the saying, crap rolls downhill. So it can only roll down so far. Hits a station. So the station is a giant wet well with pumps in the bottom of it. Okay, so then the wastewater flows into the lift station. The lift station uses pumps to lift it back up pretty much and pump it down the line further.
That's so you can keep the downward slope of it.
Correct. So whether it pumps it back into another gravity system or whether it just pumps it into a pipe, which is pressurized, and then that will carry it to the wastewater plant where the water can be rendered and turned back good again, put back into the environment. Any other questions? No? Awesome. Eric's going to talk a little bit about lift stations.
No, I would love, actually, Eric, if you could. Yeah, just about like the Jeep just going down.
Sure, lift stations. We don't have a picture?
Get one. Here, just start talking, I'll get one.
I don't know. So where do I begin? Lift stations. The gentleman had a good question. What really is the purpose of a lift station? Well, I'll use this as an example. This pretty much is a smaller version of a lift station. Inside is the pump. Water fills up, gets to a certain level, and then it gets pumped down to another lift station possibly, or back to the plant itself. We have approximately 341 of these throughout the city. You might recognize them as a fenced-in area with a panel. Sometimes they smell, sometimes they don't. Just depends on the day, I guess. I don't know if we have a picture.
Yes, I'm feverishly looking.
That's all right.
Sorry.
No, I'm unprepared. I came for moral support for Joe. Does anybody have any questions? I might be, yes? Two. We have two. One's off of Glades Cutoff Road, and another one is off of Darwin Boulevard. Well, not today. Not to my knowledge.
New one? Any plans for new ones?
New wastewater plant?
New plans?
Oh, here. Pass that. Yeah, there you go.
I'm not really supposed to be here talking, but that's all right. Yes, so we have two plants. One's a 6 MGD right now, one's a 12. The 6 MGD plant is probably going to, million gallons a day. Yes, good question. So one can process up to 6 million gallons a day of waste stream, and the other one is 12 million gallons a day. The 6 MGD, we're actually in the process of upgrading it. It's going to stay at 6, but we are updating it and getting a better effluent. We do use that for reuse, so we're actually treating it and reducing the nitrogen and the phosphorus to help improve the water quality that's coming out, hopefully with the environment around here. The 12 MGD plant is going to be upgraded at some point. We're not to that point. We monitor how much flow we're receiving every year, and then we're doing our capital improvements to make sure that we get involved in that sooner than later. So right now, I'm projecting we won't have to improve that plant till 2029. I'm in the process of doing a master plan right now to see if that needs to be pushed up sooner. But so far, we're still meeting all the demands that are needed.
Well, thank you. Thank you, John. Yeah, thank you.
Boy, this has really gone off the rails, hasn't it? So I'm going to give Eric a reprieve. I can't get back to my PowerPoint. I don't know how all systems are failing, so I can't get back to those photos. But I'd love to brag on Eric's behalf because he goes like deep down into those lift stations. And I was there one day just to even look over to take a photo. I was like heart palpitations. So I mean, I had some photos of him deep down, in the whole like hazmat suit and everything. It's dangerous work. So I so appreciate what you all do. But I actually wanted to kick it back to Scott. So I know that our focus today was what's underground, but I know that we had talked about what's going on out at McCarty for our future treatment. Yeah, so if you could speak to that I would appreciate that. Thank you.
So out near the Martin County Correctional Facility, I'm not sure if y'all get out that way very often, but we have a water quality restoration project. And John can speak to it probably better than me, but essentially it takes water out of the canal, puts it in reservoirs and lets it filter naturally down, and that removes a lot of pollutants and everything before it gets to the river. Now, I'm working currently with FPL to put in about 2 miles worth of conduit and new electrical service to run out there and power the pumps that we have out there now. They're currently diesel. So we're trying to eliminate the diesel and go electric. And in parallel with that, we're going to put more conduit in for fiber optic controls, et cetera. So it's a big project. And like I said, we try to mitigate costs as much as possible. So when they're putting their conduit in for their service, we're going to put ours in parallel with them, and we're going to put a spare in. We always put spare conduit in for expansion later because it costs a lot more to go back and dig it up and add an extra pipe than to put it in, from the get-go. So we do our best to mitigate costs to pass that on to the customers. Question? Oh, that's a process question. John, do you know better than me? Yeah. Yeah, I'm more electrical service and fiber optic and that type of thing.
Yeah, and I can't really go too more. I'm not really a process guy either, but you know, our wastewater plants do they're operated and dispose of the waste via bugs, micro bugs. We do feed them. You know, basically they just run off air, so we give them enough air that they eat the whatever waste there is, and then the byproduct comes out of that. We dispose of that. And then we do run it through filters and chlorinate it to make sure any of the fecal chloroform or anything like that is killed before it goes to the reuse. Or here we dispose of it down a deep injection well as well. So we actually pump it down, 3,000 feet below grade to refurbish that.
If you've ever dealt with anaerobic bacteria in the water, you recognize it by the smell. So, if you don't know the smell, kind of so fortunate.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. About how much land does it take for each of these plants?
It depends. Our wastewater, our Glades facility, we actually have more land than we needed. We roughly have 400 acres that it sits on. The 12 MG, I think, sits on probably 40 acres of that. And then, of course, we need a little bit more just to do for the expansion. The 6 MGD is, I'm not even sure, I think it's on probably a 20-acre lot. It's on a little island by itself, so it's kind of isolated as well. It just, with these processes, they are coming up with new processing that are smaller, take smaller land, but they are spread out to give the bugs the time to eat the waste that we have to. Man,
He's never going to come
I
again.
know.
You're an essential part.
Okay.
Speaking of big, you said there's 2 water plants. You might have already had a presentation on that, but have you already had a presentation? Or will there be one for the water plants?
The water plants,
Process of everything and where the water comes from, goes to and all that?
I think you've already had,
Water treatment and all that?
Yes.
you've had one already?
Yes, that was the one. That was the one back in January. Yes, so this last one was all about sewer. So a lot of those questions could have been answered at the last one. But like I said, these are all available on the city's YouTube channel. But we're going to do these next year as well. So again, it'll be held quarterly. The similar topics, but because I'm seeing a lot of the same faces, we want to try to put new people in front of you and get different perspectives. And so just check back. Yeah, circle back. Yes, so we never actually introduced him. We just pulled him up here. So John Eason is our assistant director. So
Really help the septic, people who still have septic. Does it really work? Does it really help?
Yeah, and that's what it does. It helps. It's basically feeding the bacteria that's doing the work. So it does help. But at the end of the day, we do want you to hook up. Yeah, but eventually we do want you to hook up to avoid, because you do have a discharge off that side. So at some point, it's not doing as good of a job as you would like. So that waste stream from there is still your right. Yeah, I think the requirement right now is we have most of the infrastructure ready for people to hook up. So yeah, it's either when it gets to a point where the septic tank is not producing what it should be or treating it like it should, then the health department requires them to connect instead of putting new waste septic in. All the new developments have to hook up. They're not allowed to put in septic tanks. But right now, yeah, it's not enforced. We have the infrastructure, but we don't enforce it. We just, hopefully will allow you to do it when you can. So, yeah.
If you think about it, it's done, gotta do it.
You might want to go to the YouTubes of the previous ones
Yeah.
you did, because I think you'll find some of the answers. And I talked there, and I think the last one was more process oriented.
Yeah.
yes,
And he might get his answer.
yes, there you go. One more question? So there's a couple different types of sewer systems within the city. So they talked about gravity systems, but if you have a green lid in your front yard, then you have one of these grinders beneath it.
Could also be a step system. So we have a few different types of sewer systems. We have the gravity, we have a grinder, and we also have what we call the step system. So you may have a green lid in your front yard depending on what area of town you're in. It could be a grinder, or it could be one of the smaller half-horse pumps that really don't grind. They just kind of pump everything out. That is predominantly east of US 1 and some of the older areas around the River Park, Floresta Pines area right here. Other than that, it's gravity. If you don't have one of those, then you're on gravity more than likely, or you have a septic tank. So, did I answer that? I don't remember.
We have issues like with our water, like our home neighborhood has an issue with smell. Do you guys come out and check it, or do we call somebody here?
Smell of what? The actual water coming out of the faucet?
Like it's the sewer.
Like it out of the faucet or out of the drains? Okay, so the actual, and the reason I'm asking this is, okay, the reason I'm asking is because sometimes people will turn the water on in the sink and they'll automatically smell a sewer smell. That could be coming out of the drain just as well as it could be coming out of the water. So, yeah. So if your trap underneath the sink they get gunky, they get nasty, and the inrush of that water can kind of push an odor up at you, and sometimes you can smell that. So, if you are having an issue, if you're having some smell like that, you can call the customer service department, the 873-6400 number. You know, and if you have odor, what I would suggest is if you're smelling it, okay, let's just say you're smelling water at the sink, it's stinky. Go outside and turn it on and see if you get the same smell out of the hose bib. You know, put the water in a cup and smell it. That'll tell you whether it's actual water or if it is your drain. So, but they can come out and sample the water. They can check it out. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. No, not necessarily from the sink. No. So if it's a drain, if it's internally, if you have a smell coming out of a sink, and if it's a sink that's regularly used, that's an internal issue. We don't do anything internally in the home. Yep. Yes, sir.
A couple of things. One of which, I've had two instances where the alarm on my home for the grinder's gone off. I want to say kudos to the guys that came out. They show up relatively quickly, within hours. I had to have a float replaced once. And a motor replaced once on the grinder. One of them was 2 o'clock in the morning.
God bless him.
Very pleasant. So you guys are really good workers. I agree.
That's great to hear. Thank you.
I live in South Bend.
Uh-huh.
I was coming out Felix at the very corner of Felix and Pace in the boulevard. There's a station right there.
Yes, sir.
The lift station or what type of sewage station it is. But as I was pulling out, there was water flowing from the station out onto the road in Felix. And it was sewage smell. As I noticed it, I told my wife, I said, get on the app and report it quickly. And she did. And so by the time we got, we were going north, I think
Good. Good. Yeah, sometimes it's best. Sometimes I'm all for technology, but sometimes an old-fashioned phone call is the best way to go, you know? So. And I believe that's an app that's used by all the departments within the city, if I'm not mistaken, the one PSL. Yep. Yep. Yes, sir. Thank you, guys.
All right, everybody, it's about that time. One more question? Yes.
Everybody's talking about this smell coming out of their sinks. Well, if you'll get the Santa sticks, the little sticks about yay long, you can get them in a lemons odor or other smells. Drop 2 or 3 of those in there, and start that.
Fantastic. Baking soda, yeah. Okay, fantastic. Thank you for that comment. All right, folks, we are going to go ahead and wrap up. Again, thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for your participation. If you all could, check in those blue bags. There's a survey in there asking you questions about our presenters today, you know, the value in this sort of event. And then if you have any suggestions for the future, I look at every single one and I keep track. So if you could fill those out for me, I'd really appreciate it. You can leave them at the front door. You can leave them at your table. There should be a pen in your bag too. So if anybody, right? So if you need a pen or whatever, just let me know. But thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. Thanks for your participation again. Thanks.